Pakistan has finally found its insurance policy and it's stamped with the Saudi royal seal. A mutual defense pact that declares any attack on one is an attack on both. For Islamabad, this isn't about deterrence, it's about indulgence. A free pass to keep playing arsonist in the region, knowing Riyadh is now contractually bound to hold the fire extinguisher. For decades, Pakistan has treated terrorism as a budget airline, cheap tickets to global relevance. Pulwama, Mumbai, Pahalgam. Each hike tested India's patience. Now, with Saudi Arabia formally hitching itself to Pakistan's wagon, those hikes could turn into mountain-sized provocations. And the world? Washington smiles politely, nodding along, as if nothing explosive just happened. The irony is hard to miss. India shows restraint, Pakistan shows provocation, Saudi shows loyalty, and America shows silence. Which begs the question, how much longer before this dangerous pact turns Pakistan's mischief into a regional disaster? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. So Saudi Arabia and nuclear-armed Pakistan have just signed a mutual defense pact. On paper, it looks routine. An attack on one will be considered an attack on both. But the reality is far more dangerous. Pakistan, long the architect of cross-border terror and nuclear brinkmanship, now has its most powerful ally yet. And India, once again, is forced into a defensive posture, tested at every turn. Because in Pakistan, terror is not a failure, it is a strategy. Pahalgam, Pulwama, Mumbai terror attacks. Each attack was deliberate, a high intention designed to test India's restraint. And now, with Saudi Arabia formalizing its backing, Pakistan's generals can escalate with unprecedented confidence. Every provocation is now shielded by political, military, and strategic cover. The Saudi-Pakistan Defense Pact did not appear out of thin air. It is the product of two seismic shocks in West Asia. Of course, the first was Israel's unprecedented strike on Qatar in 2025, targeting senior Hamas officials and rattling the region by showing that no Gulf capital was off limits. The second came earlier in 2022 when Houthi drones pierced Saudi Arabia's billion-dollar defense shield and struck Aramco facilities, crippling oil production and humiliating Riyadh's security apparatus.
They thought that the oscillatory nature of the U.S. Military diplomacy in the region, now it is more and more evident that the U.S. is more tilted towards Indo-Pacific rather than the Middle East itself. And the last example, if you could recollect, was the Houthi attack on the Aramco thing. During that time, U.S. had explicitly told Saudi that they cannot engage in someone else's war, and in fact maybe ask them to foot the bill, and it was very half-hearted help.
Pakistan, always eager to present itself as a defender of the Muslim world, has secured a formal guarantee from Riyadh. And it is no coincidence that the pact's language, any aggression against either country shall be considered an aggression against both, leaves no room for interpretation. Pakistan has effectively weaponized its alliances.
Timing of the announcement is perhaps as important as the actual contents of the announcement. The joint defense, the mutual defense pact that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have signed, of course, comes on the backs of more than 50 years of very close military ties between them. However, if you look at the actual agreement and certainly all the kind of readouts that have been put out, the real operative part is the paragraph that says this agreement, which reflects the shared commitment of both nations to enhance their security, aims to develop aspects of defense cooperation between the two countries and strengthen joint deterrence against any aggression. Most importantly, it says the agreement states that any aggression against either country shall be considered an aggression against both. Now, certainly this has been more or less said in the past, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan always seeing each other as brother countries. But when we saw that moment of Mohammed bin Salman and Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif actually, coming into an embrace and then signing this pact, it has an urgency because of the moment. And that moment has much more to do, perhaps, than what is happening in the Gulf than it does with South Asia and with India and Pakistan. But I think the impact will be felt quite strongly here as well.
Saudi Arabia is no stranger to Pakistan's ambitions. Pakistani troops first served in Saudi Arabia in the late 1960s, deployed to stabilize the region and defend Islamic holy sites. After Iran's 1979 revolution, Saudi fears of Tehran's expansionism deepened their reliance on Pakistan's military. Over decades, Riyadh has shaped Pakistan's political and military calculus. Today, that influence formalizes Pakistan's ability to escalate unrestrained. And then there's the nuclear factor. Pakistan developed its bomb to counter India's arsenal, but Saudi Arabia quietly financed its progress. Retired General Feroz Hassan Khan notes in his book Eating Grass that Saudi funds helped Pakistan sustain its nuclear program under international sanctions. Analysts have speculated for years that Riyadh could be included under Pakistan's nuclear umbrella. Now, in a formal pact, that speculation is moving toward reality.
The original idea that Saudi Arabia's real threat is from Iran, its challenger is Iran, that Pakistan, despite being an Iranian neighbor, has always had these close ties with Saudi Arabia as a result of it. And I think you can look at even the irony of the fact that a few years ago, when Saudi Arabia and Qatar completely cut ties between each other and practically went to war with each other. You saw at that time Pakistan actually refusing to send its troops in that intra-Gulf conflict. And a big rift between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan over that. But I think despite all these traditional and very, very old fault lines as well as alliances between all these countries, Geeta, it is necessary to see what's happened in the immediate preamble to this agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Obviously, an agreement like this is negotiated over months, if not years. The timing of the announcement, however, comes, if you just look at the days that preceded it.
Doha.
The Israel attack on Doha. Then Qatar hosts an extraordinary session of the OIC and the Arab League. 60 countries come together, including Pakistan's leadership, but also Indonesia, other countries, all come together there. Pakistan's prime minister actually speaks about the idea of an Islamic NATO for the first time. Regardless of the fact that did not go into their final document, what we did see is the GCC countries, Gulf Cooperation Council countries, coming together and talking about a joint defense mechanism for the first time. Remember, across the Middle East, and especially in the Gulf region, America has very carefully made its ties with each of these countries. There are 30 to 40,000 US troops in various countries, whether it's Al Udeid, as I said, in Qatar is the largest, but then there is in Saudi Arabia, you have bases in Bahrain, in Jordan, in Kuwait, across that region. And they are now coming together saying, we don't think the US is going to guarantee our security if Israel decides that someone from Hamas is here and they can bomb one of us. A sense of unity amongst countries that have not always, as you pointed out just now, has not always been united.
For India, the Saudi-Pakistan Pact raises a dangerous new hurdle. Any future retaliation against Pakistan will no longer be framed as counterterrorism. It will be painted as aggression against a treaty ally of Riyadh. That means New Delhi won't just be fighting Pakistan on the ground. It will also be dragged into a diplomatic courtroom, forced to table hard evidence every time it hits back. In effect, the burden shifts. Pakistan sponsors terror, but India must prove it before the world can accept its response. The United States, particularly under Donald Trump, has maintained engagement with both Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. While Washington, D.C. publicly opposes terror, its strategic approach allows Islamabad to operate with latitude, ensuring provocations are seldom challenged on the international stage. Pakistan escalates, India is forced to hold back.
is it possible that the US, which did express some amount of discomfort with what Israel is doing, is trying to balance it out by turning a blind eye or not really responding to Pakistan and and Saudi Arabia getting this mutual defense pact? Perhaps the US quarterbacked it at some point, given that we know for a fact that President Trump was in Riyadh a few months ago. He has had these very close conversations with the Pakistani army chief, the Field Marshal Munir, as well as a sort of open dialogue now going on with Pakistan. The fact is, India has had strong relations with Saudi Arabia over these last few years, but it really began maybe in 2006 with the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Declaration. Long before that, in the 1970s, after the 71 war, where Pakistan's military was decimated, its resources were decimated, it was Saudi Arabia that really helped Pakistan to rebuild and funded many things in Pakistan. So over the next few years, we saw them sign many pacts on the defense sphere. One of those pacts involves Pakistan actually training Saudi military officers. So there's a close link over there. Another part, and you spoke about that with Raheel Sharif, involves Pakistan deputing its military officers in Saudi Arabia. And that has happened as well. General Bajwa, all of them have been awarded in Saudi Arabia at various times, have been used for specific operations or strategic support. The third, which is not spoken about, but has always been hinted at, is some kind of Pakistani support or assistance to Pakistan's nuclear program. While we know that the components have come from North Korea and China has quarterbacked that program in many ways, and the original reactors, it is the Saudi help that had made it sound like the Pakistani nuclear facilities and its resources were building what was called the Islamic bomb. And in a book a few years ago, Bob Woodward had actually quoted Lindsey Graham, the U.S. senator, saying that Graham had been told by Mohammed bin Salman in a conversation when he said, "Are you looking to create your own nuclear weapon?" And you remember this was a big event where Saudi Arabia was looking at nuclear power, because it said if Israel gets a nuclear bomb, so will we. And he said, I can use Pakistani support for nuclear facilities, nuclear power. When he's pressed about a bomb, a weapon, he says, well, I can always buy one from Pakistan.
Pakistan escalates with terror attacks and provocations. Saudi Arabia provides political influence and military cover. And the United States of America maintains strategic engagement, preserving space for Pakistan's maneuvering. India bears the responsibility of restraint, while Pakistan gains freedom to act. Saudi Arabia's influence is profound. It has historically guided Pakistan's political leadership, hosting exiled prime ministers like Nawaz Sharif, ensuring compliance with agreements, and reinforcing military dominance. Today, that influence ensures Pakistan's generals operate with confidence, escalating provocations while avoiding consequences. Consider the history. Pahalgam, Pulwama, Mumbai. Terror attacks are not accidents, they are state policy for Pakistan. Pakistan's military and intelligence apparatus orchestrate each escalation, calculating the consequences and adjusting to India's responses. Now with Saudi backing, these calculations include an additional layer: international cover. And the nuclear dimension cannot be understated. Saudi Arabia, having financed Pakistan's program, now holds influence over its deployment and strategy. Analysts suggest that in a confrontation with India, this influence could allow Pakistan to escalate nuclear threats, knowing that Saudi Arabia's political shield and the US's permissive strategic posture provide safety nets. India faces a neighbor emboldened at every level, militarily, politically, and diplomatically. Pakistan can escalate in Kashmir, provoke through terror, and threaten nuclear use. Saudi Arabia provides the shield, and the United States' strategic approach gives Pakistan room to maneuver. Every act of terror becomes a hike, every escalation a calculated step in Pakistan's strategy. The pattern is clear. Pakistan provokes, Saudi Arabia shields, the United States' engagement preserves strategic latitude, India restrains. Cross-border terror, sectarian provocation, and nuclear brinkmanship have become Pakistan's tools, amplified by decades of strategic support from its allies.
During Operation Sindoor, of course, we did send delegations to various countries, including Gulf countries, to explain our position and, to convey our concerns. But then it's a matter of fact that none of these countries explicitly condemned Pakistan. They condemned acts of terrorism, but fell short of naming Pakistan. Now, the wording in this defense pact saying that an attack on one country is deemed as attack on the other, we need to see how this will translate if there is another response like Operation Sindoor in response to any other cross-border terrorism. Now, but having said that, I would say that Saudis would definitely continue to maintain strong ties with India, which we have been nurturing. We have been nurturing very strong counterterrorism and security dialogues with them, built since 2016 onwards. We have a comprehensive security dialogue, joint working group on counterterrorism, and many other things. And of course, we have naval cooperation and many other things. So our engagement with the Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, is multi-vector cooperation, energy, investment, diaspora, maritime security. So all this is on one side. So I don't think this particular pact which Saudi Arabia signed with Pakistan will in any way dilute their engagement with India, but certainly complicates matters for us because we have to keep this a factor, because now Pakistan has become a very important player there. So if there are certain cross-border incidents which have happened, and we tend to blame the Pakistani complicity in it, we have to, as you rightly say, have enough proof to convince the Gulf countries.
For decades, Pakistan has leveraged terror as policy, testing India's limits. Now, with Saudi Arabia formalizing its backing and US engagement allowing strategic flexibility, Pakistan's generals can plan provocations without fear. India is forced into defense. Pakistan escalates. The pact ensures that Pakistan escalates, secure in the knowledge that Saudi Arabia will shield it politically and militarily. And while US engagement preserves strategic flexibility, it indirectly allows Islamabad latitude to escalate against India. India faces calculated aggression at every turn. The Saudi-Pakistan Pact, combined with US engagement, emboldens Pakistan's generals to escalate, knowing the global system provides them protection. From Kashmir to the border region, every act of terror, every provocative statement, every nuclear threat is calculated under this protective shield. Saudi Arabia and the US enable Pakistan's impunity. India remains the responsible actor forced to navigate the most dangerous strategic environment it has ever faced. The pattern is undeniable. All the terror attacks in India, Pahalgam, Pulwama, Mumbai, each escalation is a test, each act of terror a hike, and now Pakistan acts with formal backing from Saudi Arabia and a permissive US strategic posture. India is forced into defense, restraint, and strategic caution, while Pakistan escalates with impunity. South Asia's future is being defined by this strategic triangle. Pakistan escalates, Saudi Arabia shields, the United States preserves Islamabad's maneuvering space. India remains the responsible actor, forced to defend its sovereignty while navigating state-sanctioned terror, cross-border provocations, and nuclear brinkmanship, all calculated under the protective shield of its neighbors' allies. Because in a region armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, cross-border terror, and protective allies, caution is not weakness, it is survival. But survival has its limits. Thank you for watching Statecraft.